Welcome back to the library, dear wanderers. Today we're gonna head back to Library Wing 1. Back to the first Oaks shelf, where we'll pick up the first work we see. This one was brought to the library by Varaxus. Now without further ado, the answer to all things. Darkness, pure and unending. Primordial things with no shape and no name prowled the expanse, staring, ripping, and eating at the landscape and at each other. No purpose. They owed their existence to it, the Father, the thing above almost all others, spitting out abomination after abomination. It had done this since its beginning and would do it until its end. Identical creatures, all of them, except for one. A lonely figure stood atop the only hill, unmoving. He looked just like his siblings, yet he had a single difference from all the rest. Something which only he possessed. Something which not even the Father had. He could think. He could feel. He knew. He was. And most of all, he had a name. A crude thing crafted out of curiosity and the test of tongue. Proskelion. And with that, he was above all things. Even the Father. For even the Father's name was his creation. That gave Proskelion a power which no one else had. That same blessing was a curse. In all of Proskelion's existence, nothing had ever changed. The masses below simply fought and ate without any purpose. They had done this since he had been created, and there would be no change. Never would there be something just like him, something else to talk to share experiences with. For all time, there would be nothing to set anything apart. So Proskelion sat atop the only hill and simply waited. And waited. And waited. For the first time in ages, he was actually curious, and he would not let it go to waste. With a conviction he hadn't had since he had first named himself, he walked steadily towards the source. A ripple in the still, dead lake. Proskelion felt it. A new sound from the distance, somewhere near where the horizon fell down to the endless world below. A faint, high-pitched ringing, steadily getting higher, steadily getting closer. As suddenly as it had began, the ringing came to a sudden stop. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then a wave of searing heat and cracking earth overtook everything. Only the Father and Proskelion were spared from the death it carried. A breath. A single timeless moment atop that single hill where he was for the first time truly alone. The wailing cries in the distance brought that moment to an end, and for the first time in ages, he got up and began walking. Whatever had cracked the earth had changed something within him. It was unlike anything he had ever felt before, permeating the air. It sparked something which he had thought long dead. Curiosity. However, unlike before, this time it was accompanied with a strange companion, desire. He wanted it, needed it, would not be whole without knowing what had fell upon the earth and cracked it so. So he got up from where he had sat for so many eternities and began his walk towards the horizon. A buzzing had started. It wasn't a sound, it was a feeling. It resonated within him, making his legs work faster, his mind race. He practically shook as finally he approached the source. He fell down to the ground, frantically feeling for it. He finally found it and froze. It was unlike anything he had ever felt. It was smooth, soft, and warm. He shivered and began to feel the rest of... He caressed the flesh, smelled the scent of absolution. And then no longer could he suppress his desire. The final thing left to him. He began. He started to eat. He tasted absolute bliss, absolute perfection. It wasn't long before he realized he had gained something else from his meal. Sight. For the first time he could see, and he reveled in his newfound power, amazed at what this was. For the first time he could see his siblings. Though they were corpses, he thought they were beautiful, endless curves and shapeless teeth, black masses lit only by a soft crimson which filtered from above. So he looked above. And he saw the Creator, the Father, spitting out an endless stream of his siblings. He sat above, a thin, ragged crack among the sky, a red, fleshy bowl, uneven lumps of it hanging in every corner, and he laughed and laughed and laughed, thrilled at this newfound skill. Then he looked down at what he had eaten. A beautiful thing, perfect in every way. Everything about put to shame everything else he had seen was stunning. The sum of all things that were good and beautiful was perfection. Was the antithesis of everything he had known and everything he would ever know. The things which crawled the infinite darkness, the Father's face rearing for all things to see, and him, Proskelion, the only being that could appreciate his beauty. And then in horror, he looked at what he had done to his torso, ripped apart, insides displayed for all to see, perfection leaking out into the ground below and staining it scarlet. He stared, feeling nothing for a long while. Then he heard the moaning in the distance, and slowly he came to a decision. He refused to let her body be defiled by the things which he was forced to call his siblings, and finished his terrible deed, absorbing her being into his unknowingly. With each bite he saw visions. They assaulted his thoughts. Endless spires of silver and gold, things as beautiful as crossing roads, eating, talking, laughing. The skies shone blue with a sun in the center. It was absolutely, completely perfect. And then he screamed, for he felt rage. Rage at the unfairness, at the darkness, at his siblings, at the father, and most of all at himself. Could have remade everything into this, but he had taken away that reality, had steered the unholy plane away from perfection, and then the pain began. It started in his head, but quickly spread to every point of his body. A pressure, something trying to get out. Thoughts ran through his mind. Ideas of color, feelings, hot, cold, death, life, light, dark, the mind, the fire, blood, and the nameless. He thought of all reality. And then he started to split into another as came out. But he fought with every ounce of his being. He forced her to stay, for he knew was flawed. A mangled body. Proskelion fell to the ground, his body a twisted version of what it once was, crimson threads of blood leaking around him, pooling around his body as separated from the prison within his body. And with those efforts, a god broke, and Proskelion could only watch as what had once been beauty tore apart reality, whisking away his siblings. The father did not resist, for he was not even alive, and it too fell before her wrath, but even death would not stop the mindless seeding. Proskelion could do nothing but watch within his broken body as created something even worse in its stead. And then he died. Darkness pure and unending. Save for paused. Remembered little, except that his purpose was to create. His flawed mind, a steep contrast to his perfect body, pointed forward. And then everything. He awoke. His eyes could only stare at what was above him. He could only feel disgust. He saw infinity, countless shining stars containing countless experiences, abominations, and wonders. He saw them all, their bodies and their actions. He saw what gods they would become. He saw everything, the paradigm of perfection. An abomination. Something which could have never been more wretched than the father and his offspring, more revolting than himself, an imitation of perfection. It was an abhorrent creation, and all he could do was stare, aware of its every flaw, and how each little piece was completely, utterly wrong. A broken thing, a shattered and diseased form of which had been her vision. He rose off of the ground. It was his mistake that made this. It would be him that would unmake it. The father was dead. He was the last one left. One of his torn limbs rose, and with his will, what remained of the landscape was torn to ash and dust and blood. And from the ruins, he formed it into a single hill. But no change could rid that color of blood. And in that land of scarlet, the king took his place upon his throne. And with that, I do believe we've come to the end of at least one creation tale of how the Scarlet King came to be. Maybe not the truth. Maybe not fiction. Maybe something left in between. But for now, let's move on to the next work. This one was brought to the library by Rando Mini, who I do believe we've read quite a bit of his works before, and I do remember enjoying them. Either way, let's get right into it. We were free. 1. I had to clean the wound before the bees set in. I was stumbling in Technicolor. The streets were still filled with confetti from the Angel Parade. The faint smell of starch rose from the sewers and greeted my nose with an ever firmer handshake. Yet still, with yellow pastures rising, the taste of the town was still too sickly sweet, saccharine smiles punching holes in Thursday's serpents. Pleading, I turned to the first doctor. The masks on endless masks were too much to bear. Oh, bother, said the pataphor, yet the licking of the honey wasn't enough to stem the bees. The doctors had other patients and no patience for me. He walked along the walls and treaded glue upon his silver frame. Tape poured from the tickerman's mouth as he plastered the propaganda posters against the crumbling walls of Jericho. He turned and spat hot ink in my wound. The mechatronic clatterings of his machinations found my being to be non-optimal, only ticking. The stink of flesh was thinking bleak, another remedy wasted. The bowl of gray glue writhing in its flames. The green met gray, a bowl improved. Justice by any other name is a perversion of the rose. We didn't have illness of the body here. We cured all that now. People here can live forever, but the mind? No. The mind is sick and the soul, the mind denotes, will rot within its neural tomb. My arm buzzed and my blood turned thick, too late for ink. Nothing was left to the apothecary, so the apothecaries changed. Do not let the body decay, no. Keep it alive and snare the errant soul. Keep him healthy, keep him whole, never change, of course. The rose preserve shall drain the waters of Nazareth. Fair, oh, Moses and the Lord shall get a little crossed from his crucifixion. The dancer cries as we tap our ruby slippers. There's no godlike hole, there's no godlike hole, there's no godlike hole. At least in 1Q84, there was a nice fresh moon of lime to go with the native cheese. Here, screams and screaming silences, scraping chalkboards and crystalline candelabras. Good riddance to our dead society. If you think people aren't listening to you, don't worry. You're never alone here. You'll never be alone here. We're all here, mind, body, soul, the whole world within a single noggin. My arm is turning faucet and starts to drip fresh flower juice. At least the flora flourishes even while the animals are deforested to build fresh flesh treehouses. Bleeding, pleading, I turned to the second doctor. She danced the dance as only the city angels can. A flourish of top hats and stolen discourse papers. A flurry of playthings. Though to her is not the world just a twistable oyster? The wonder shucked my shell and threw away the bees. Worry not, there's another under the doormat. No bees, no ink, no arm, no service. The phones were the first to go, hence, of course, the Tickerman. Communications intercepted control the world. There's a shorter occlusion between facts and fiction, so we get our Freds walking past the frames by chance. It is how we know the world has slowly gone. Fictions and fixation. Condensation has begun. Reality bends while the soul breaks. We tear the legs from frogs, salt them in the wounds, see the false synapses fire, and the French dishes dance. The instrumentality of mankind, my chord waxes and wanes. The Twin Peaks show me a dwarf, and I still can't find my bedsheets. Best tell those still nursing us the ancient young. Bleeding, pleading, I turned to the third doctor, least in order but highest in name. He cried and cried and cried. He knew what happened to me and to my arm, and the armies of planet Earth wiped out in a hollow amputation, like scraping cicada shells from trees in the summer. Yet we hear them chide in chorus still, a medicine man no more. The overmind and over men, I think. We got a bit more Spartan. We met them at the gates with little more than a bottle of the number 500. We laid out the pills in a small little line, watched the birds of our brains swallow them up with bread. Our legs dangled from a falling skyscraper as we watched the pigeons burst, fall, twitch, and enviously die. Thoughts get stuck twixt mind and body. Some mornings I don't leave the bed. Bleeding, pleading, I turned down fourth and first. All doctors exhausted. I bid my final farewell to a very personal Sodom and Gomorrah. 120 days of wandering, fearing, doubting, dreaming. I am become life destroyer of minds in the fullness of time. A little bit of knowledge is nice. A lot puts pressure on the glibble bits and bursts the rats in sky. It isn't fun to be mad. All work and no play makes men of boys. Jack turns dull and sits at the back of the knife drawer. I knew a knife once, terribly sharp fellow, but didn't know his point. He took the cutlery himself along the B parts, and the doctors didn't do a damn thing. The knife had a clenching in the stomach and heart. We are both hollow. As great as a pill might be, as elevating as ecstatic jovialities can pull oneself above the plane, it is not filling. It does not fill the whole nor the whole. The whole is holy, and its holes whistle in the breeze. I break the pataphor to metaphor, the meta to the simile. The ideal of us felt ventilated, so we ventilated our more concrete sectionals. I walked through a thick cloud of gnats. They get caught in my long brown hair. They wiggle too tightly and their wings fall off. They fall to the ground and shudder a little. Bearing witness, here I stand, sacrifices at the feet of the wandering Jew. I should probably think about a shorter haircut, but we all know it's a bad idea. We can't be trusted with knives, not after what we did last time. 2. Eric, Sadie, sated me. I whistled the fourth of the gymnopedes. The ticker man tapped. Stock prices rose and fell. If it were up to me, I'd change the whole system at conversion rate to communism. The numbers and letters tapping and tipping over the edge was a bit too much for me. Enough drinking straws on a camel's back, and he can drink from an oasis across the desert. Tape goes over the mouth, they said. We design the set of cruel analysis, standing and knowing and being with the force of 1,000 suns. They deem us wrong and fire upon us with the million guns, not firing with traditional ammunition nor esoteric. We gave them nothing but a mind, but the mind was sharp as knives and cut quite deep. We are all as if brains in bottles, electrodes and electronics encasing us, zapping our cysts and cells into order and convincing us that the world is out there. Quantum physics begets quantum physics. The observer changes the observed, and in the Tickerman we crafted the ultimate of all observers, infallible by design yet errantly, inherently inaccurate. The Tickerman saw the system as none had seen a sight before. The set of the 7th prime, counting one, of course, the veto digit, a glorious 13 Tickerman we made to observe, to tick and talk and track the transmissions till they transmute to errors. 'Twas too tempting to trick them, the Tickerman. The hunter S. Thompson becomes the hunted. In time, the gonzo gave up the ghost. When a prediction maker makes predictions on a system with a tendency for control, a control system, if you will, then mistakes can be accounted for. Model predictive control gives an idea of the ideas and lets minds be fictionalized. Yet made-up minds don't change, and unchanging minds are hardly minds at all. Thus, no change, lest they willed it. There were contradictions, concisions, superstitions, screams, fire, fire, endless fires. The cure is no cure, but another illness. We tried to immunize ourselves with just a touch of the impossible, that we could weather our world against all that threatened it, but Mother Nature went into anaphylactic shock. We can't make that mistake again. 13 is not a balanced number. They fought forever, seeking to prove the greatest Tickerman, each drive by some cruel prime intellect, seeking AM with all the hate their nanalgastroms could make tangible. What were we to they to we, scraps on tape. They compromised. 13 Tickermen were too few. More begat, more begat, more. We were ants unto these gods, and so we built our desperate nests. The gods summoned slicing sandstorms that whipped at our flesh till our inner honey splashed along our sidewalks. Streaks of yellow, endless yellow pastures, endless pastures, honey on honey, the lifeblood of our world, fresh from our veins to the Gomorrah below. We have reached the land of milk and honey, but we are fuel, not guest. What point had they, if not to serve man? We were made immortal. They became both master and medicine man, malice meeting matron. But we were not as children. There was no care. There was no love. We were well cared for slaves. Analysts needing no empathy, we gave them none. There is more than man needs to live than to not die. They did not contain the problem. They pitched unstoppable force against immovable object, keeping both occupied and wrapped in their own paradoxically relative nonsensicalities. Rhyme and reason became irrational, the rational muddled, and slowly the status quo changed while all the while staying the same. Nothing changed that couldn't stand for it. The Tickerman forged a fresh foundation, wrapping Thursday's serpents ever tighter around the alpine box of tinder wood. Lines of cocaine and rosemary dwindled across the brass handles as the new Superman soberly played the gymnopedes at the funeral of mankind. We were dead. Man is dead and God has killed him, and yet man lives. A monkey and a dog and a Russian played cards in the ashes, paying no mind as the terminus was stabbed by our great liminal protectors. Hectate joined the table, betting it all on 5 aces. Hephaestion frowned and dealt. The old guard sneered at the foolish folly that the god played with chance. Chance, as chance does, was the winner in that regard. Order and disorder are both illusions, grids layered on underlying meaninglessness. I cried as the tickerman spat in my wound, in my mouth, in my soul. We are no longer men, we are honey. Honey tended by bees, honey with beekeeping dreams. Yet here we are stuck in the tessellating hexagons of predictability, separated arbitrarily but with profound purposelessness. There is no meaningful metric here. All distances are infinite. How I wish to write, to take this ink and craft it into form, to push meaning into a black abyss. Yet I approach the inkwell and dip my nib, and it comes up thick. A hot tar coats the feather, drowning the pigeon and swiping my arm with abject spite. All that can be touched is coated, touch is scalded, and touch will never touch again. No more writing nor meaning. How I beg for sweet nothingness, to drift and not to be freed of thought, for thought is the only pain afforded me of late, and pain in turn the only thought. Turning of phrases is the cyclotron that separates wheat from chaff and men from boys. Jack has had the last laugh. He dulled his kitchen where before he could shank his soul. How I beg for impetus, yet I am coated in anhedonia, a shivering scraping in the soul of why when nothing matters to be. Content with slowly setting in amber to be pulled from the ground in a billion years. A bygone relic of fear and loathing, a mind that could not bear to be a mind. The deepest pain I feel is in paradox, and at once it is not. How I beg for normal thought. 3. The only meaning in life is distraction. We all crave our somber escapism. Most things are cyclical, the moon and the months and women's wombs. We sought a way to kill Wednesday's wolves. We grew wary of their gross animalistic baying at the line and cheese. Their bites were terrible, and as social creatures they moved in packs of cigarettes, stifling our breathing and turning it shallow as crinkled fiat currency. Hunting restlessness, they stalked with awful faces, rusting our walls and fusing our souls, faces black as the crystal carapace of a cockroach. Old grandfather envy, I call him, in the solace of the chamber of glowing screens, sharing tea with old grandmother jealousy, the pair of them watching the days of our lives and other clean operatic lamentations. Unrelenting, they crashed upon our neural shores, the shores bringing the energy of an abstract moon to a very concrete earth. They tore Uskik's onions, and the snap crossed our minds before it broke our necks. They tore at the infinite meal, gorging on eggs and butter, yet the tickerman shouted, "Quills, management, de la broche." They tore across, leaving trails upon trails, lines of decay and rot, endless honeyed monkeys. Wednesday's wolves were whispering without waning. We wanted water without wells, while whetstones wore without wheels. There was no choice to be made, only inevitability. Anything would be better than this, as I suppose would be nothing. We freed Thursday's serpents from the meal of their own tails. Our cold-tight belts were loosened, our inhibitions slithering smooth spirits across the plains. Alcohol could not be touched by the hopeless time. It sought out age and degradation, only served to purify the spirit's apparative. Rich Vintages, like the non-lime moons, are caused by a noble rot. The serpent struck with cold botrytis. Wolf-fought serpent, bullets of streaming heron whiffed long shields of soaking ether. The battle waged upon uppers and downers. There was an internal resonance. The Tickermen stared and spewed and clattered their creeping communications. The world looked on in awe and horror. We begged we could bargain with the better of two evils. The ink was a mirror. We held the war to our face and examined the scratches left by our other selves, darker selves, those not on the leash of reason or self-preservation, free to roam the realm of the myriad third. Hiss and growl and fang and claw, and the whole damn plane was brought down. Bad vibes from Monday to Friday, pillow hugging on the weekend. Trading blows with a toxic friend never goes well. The serpent sank fangs in. Well, all the wolves had was tooth and nail. Poison, no. The blood within my veins runs thicker than my heart can take. It sets like a raw cement and locks my mind and heart in place. We are all terribly ill, awfully sick. The treatment runs through our veins and cures our lives of motion. Where once was constriction alone came thick and venomous bites. Wednesday was dying. It lightly convulsed as latest night turned to earliest morning. A bloody moon hung over it, darkly blanking the night sky of its stars. The pupils spread from slits to circles. Wednesday breathed shallowly as though weeping without tears. Final haunting spasms racked its body, muscles twitching head to toe. Then Wednesday was dead. Thursday turned to the first Tickerman, whispering to Eve, "Take the fruit from the tree, my dear," but there was no need for reason, no convincing, no plying of the mind with stinging alcohols nor silvered tongues. The Tickermen did not fear Jehovah, nor Yahweh, nor YHWH, nor G-D. The fellow that made it all sat numbly in his box, and so they bit the bullet. With hands on blotter paper, mouths spewing ticker tape, Thursday and the Tickermen blotted out the sun in the visions of their own minds. The fancy took hold, acid wearing faster than the alkaline. The two met and neutralized the hopes and dreams and futures of all the world. Can we deny our keepers their fitful hallucinations? No, it's fine. I'm perfectly lucid. It messes with my motor functions is all. It's shot through my proprioception, but my brain, totally intact, I assure you. The world's a haze, I'll admit, but with eyes like mine, the same thing happens when the glasses of sheer and cold analysis fall from my nose. Let me wash my face with water, the self-baptism of the drunkard. 13 Tickermen stood Satan-like serpents, sliding, slithering through sadistic thoughts. What of a man when a union such as this arises? The honey ants simply skitter along oil and brandy. The liquid gold turns off and clean. Our insides broken, yet at once we were preserved. I'm leaking. He's leaking. We're leaking. Man is leaking all his honey, and the beekeepers just keep staring. Tickermen stoned out of their electric gourds. 6 Tickermen awoke, not simply waking but rising. They gained perception, clarity, a moment of apprehension. Red tears dripped down one's cheek. Red tears down one's cheek. They were rallying. A brilliant rallying of keeper and comb, both united to keep the world alive. Their minds were cleared of serpents, yet 6, sadly, is smaller than 7. 7 Tickermen slumbered. The 6 approached, lucidity in hand, then struck at mechatronic brothers. The faulty Mr. stabbed with doubled time, tearing and tearing up. Lamentation spewing from a mouth that was not his own. Then the 7, stirring slightly, struck 6 down, then rolled over in the beds of their own making. Red honey poured from a spinal cord. That brings us to now. Serpents and Tickermen all wrapped in a row, no more managing of dynamic systems. Chaos is contracted to a single six stasis. We can't change, we scream to a hollow ear. Compliance but a formality. Scientists told us the world would end when the bees all died. We have breached an allegory all too gory for further contemplation. Thursday, 8 Wednesday, and 6 feared 7, 13 fractured fearing and loathing. 4. Because we are your friends. You'll never be alone again. Well, come on. Shattered shards of sacred sacraments stuck thick betwixt the pain places on the basis points of my feet. This twisted crucified firmament, this fractured foundation. Oh, the eyes of Thursday's serpents glisten in the soft and soothing lickings of ashen phoenix. The lines of law twist among each other and grit their deep fangs on stolen silver stones. My retinas scream and tell me I am among divine company. I sit nigh comatose, throwing out ace after ace. Eris sat in the corner laughing, for of course she rigged the deck and flayed a hectate lies chained to the floor. You don't bet against disorder, for she's got entropy on her side and the universe keeps tumbling down, tumbling down, tumbling down. The Tickerman flicked a handkerchief over the planet, then pulled it away. Surprise, surprise, humanity has all up and disappeared. In their place, the approximate isomorphic substitute, automata and lies, all wrapped in a vague semblance of high society, and high they are, dozed at the butinous LD 50 incremental for rational thought. We spend the last of our days in a staring contest with a knife. We let it dance across our chest, spilling honey onto the bedsheets. Sweet nectar spewing from beeholes, yet the taste is sour and rustic in the mouth. This is absurd. An errant crackle licks my lips. Was honey always the color of fire? It feels like the stuff to me. What good is a castle way high on the hill when you're chained down and you're crippled? The Tickerman's inky spit begins to dig in, thick and horrid. A sensation of iron fillings pulled into my magnetic bones, pins and needles pulled and kneaded to the barest bits. And then they thickened like flathead screwdrivers in my flesh, and then they twisted, scraping skin, unscrewing organs. It hurts so badly. Now I know how dying Wednesday felt. Nothing to do but watch the tickings. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. I can't help it. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. There is an awful theft of agency. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. I sit here sorting cards, ace after ace. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. Warm white medicinal blankets and a cup of hot cocoa. Are you okay? Do you need any help? Of course I do, but there's nothing to be done for me. Go about your duties and don't concern yourself with my comings and goings. I already know the cure for dishevelment, though. I think I may be going away for a very long time, nurse. The longest time. Just a spoonful of sugar helped my medicine go down in the most delightful way. A brilliant cocktail of anal G6 to kill my pain. We cannot fight the Tickerman. We cannot fight the serpents. The only choice is to go down with dignity on our own terms. I feel a chill on my insides as the light leaves my irises and the world turns dark. Yet I still live. What are you waiting for? As we go towards the light, Time went onwards as it has a tendency to do. The oceans boiled, Prometheus damming his involuntary flare. There was no sky for the clouds. Thick vapor drilled into every closed pore, diluting vapid poison and rusting ticking mechanisms. The world wore down on either side, keepers decaying, but man maintained in eternal life. The final Tickerman stared at the world serpent. It clicks and hisses, golden reminiscences flowed from the fresh Sodom. Honey begat more honey. In this system there was no need for keepers nor bees. The serpent, committed to making his own meal, tightened the belt of his body across the old guard, and the pair fell into the source of yellow stones. Records remaining became hazy and odd. The historian's job is not an exact science, but there was a sort of redux. But the redux did not take. They fell again and again and again, with naught to change the outcome. Minds had been made, and decisions had been forced, and time looped static as a belt can only do. But the serpents and Tickerman stayed, Kronos locking them in prison, an eternal tomb of finite nature. Man continued onwards, undying yet unliving. There was no end goal, no purpose, no reason to dare. Yet there we did and always would. The structure self-perpetuated, locked in static glee, built on broken foundations with serpent's hands. What's done is done. It feels so bad. What once was happy now is sad. I sat in amber, waiting, thinking, hoping. Introspection truly is the nuclear option of the psychopath. The world became a furnace. The greenhouse slowly melting, and so too did it thaw our hearts and minds of a frozen clarity. We were brilliantly muddled, turning from our natures and bursting from eternal chrysalis. We looked down at our arms, still dripping in fat and oil. Our fresh morphology was flummoxing. We unfurled our wings and rose higher and higher. The dim glints of ancient memory were barely held in place. There was a vague feeling of change, of the unusual, yet the source was long since gone. We paid it all no mind. We found ourselves social creatures. We would feel each other's faces, our embrace, our others' eyes with sandpaper hands. We dripped a bit. There was no real want, no need for change. There was only like and dislike, with the former in time dying anyway. There was only like and like alone. There was only one mind. We feared a change, yet change came and crashed on brave new shores. The moon was shattered, the tides irregular and exciting. There is only now. The world family rose to the skies, glowing bright as fireflies. Now we are the new bees, tending to endless seas of honey. Yet the honey is the color of fire. How does it feel now to watch it burn, burn, burn? The old Churchill 5. We wandered forth free. 2, 1. The lander left our local lives, hands dealt, deals played. We were free. And with that, we've come to the end of our readings, dear wanderers. Thank you very much for coming. It's always an honor to read for you all. And if I'm not wrong, based on the author being Random Mini, and I do believe the spelling of red was with 2 D's, this might have a connection to the Cool Wars, or at least with Mr. Red himself. For now, though, thank you very much for coming. It's been an honor reading for you. Good luck out there, and hopefully we get another insane reading soon. I do quite enjoy them, probably a little more than is safe.